The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, often referred to as the Mormon Church, is one of the world's largest hedge funds, engaging in staggering business deals and crooked corporate practices that you probably have never heard of. In 2023, the Securities and Exchange Commission, which typically targets insider trading and stock manipulation, fined the Mormon Church $5 million. The fine was imposed for deliberately concealing stock holdings by distributing them across 13 different shell companies inside multiple layers of holding companies to hide the church's enormous financial activities. I mean, hear the explanation from the Mormon Church yourself.
What about, the idea that secrecy builds mistrust?
Well, we don't feel it's being secret. We feel it's being confidential.
What's the difference?
The difference is, I guess it's a point of view.
If you think that it's absurd for a church to face charges that are the same as those of the largest corporate frauds, hold on, because it only gets worse. The start of the Mormon Church was a result of the collaboration between the Christian revivalist movement in the 19th century and Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith was born December 23rd in 1803 and grew up in the middle of the spiritual reform in New York and is referred to as the founder of Mormonism. As he grew up, he got confused with the conflicting claims of faith and claimed to have a revelation of his own. When he was just 14, little Joseph claimed that he had a series of visions from God, and God led him to gold plates inscribed with instructions for the human race, which, still to this day, have never been released to the public or confirmed in existence. Joseph then translated these plates into the Book of Mormon and started the Mormon Church in 1830. Since then, the Mormon Church has been collecting 10% of its members' incomes as tax-deductible tithes. For instance, if a member of the Latter-day Saints earns $50,000 and is taxed at 20%, they would give $10,000 to the church annually. Without this donation, $8,000 would have remained with the member, while $2,000 would have gone to the IRS in the form of income taxes. This effectively means that the government is subsidizing 20% of the church's income. The church does not disclose its annual revenue, but a joint analysis by Reuters and the University of Tampa estimated it to be at least $7 billion in tithes and donations in 2012. It is very reasonable to assume that this number has grown significantly since then, considering it was 14 years ago, along with their investment fund, but more on that later. The Mormon Church has grown its membership population from 7 followers to over 17 million today, and if you want to actually leave the church, you need to reference the General Handbook Guidelines, section 32.14.9, which says that you can resign your membership by sending a signed, notarized request to the church headquarters. The tithing money collected from church members is partly used to fund the church's religious activities, such as paying salaries to priests and maintaining church facilities. Some of it is also spent on community programs. However, the Mormon Church consistently always has a massive surplus. This excess money, donated by the members every year, is funneled into a trust managed by the corporation of the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The president, who is both the cultural and managerial leader of the church, controls the company that oversees the trust managing the church's extra funds. This holding company owns various entities, including an educational division within Brigham Young University, a think tank called the Intellectual Reserve, and the Polynesian Cultural Center. This Polynesian Center, located in Hawaii, is an LDS-controlled tourist destination established to provide employment and scholarships to Mormon students attending the nearby Mormon-owned university in Lae, Hawaii. Fun fact, when I was 8 years old, I actually visited this place and won a tree climbing competition. If this video gets over 5,000 likes, I'll drop the picture of it in the community tab. Anyways, the last major asset owned by the corporation of the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is yet another holding company that is the corporation of the presiding bishop of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The holding company owned by a holding company also owns another holding company called the Deseret Management Corporation, which is the private equity investment arm. The Deseret Management Corporation owns several for-profit companies outright, including Beneficial Financial Group, which is an insurance investment and retirement services company, Bonneville International Corporation, with Jones radio stations nationwide, and Utah Property Management Association, which is a real estate company that manages apartments and commercial properties.
The charitable organizations can't bail out for-profit businesses and maintain their charitable status.
All church members are encouraged to use the services of these companies, and that gives them a free customer base of over 17 million people without having to pay a penny in advertising costs. The bishop's holding company also owns agricultural reserves, farmlands, real estate holdings, suburban homes, and the land that the church temple sits on top of. Combined, all of the assets and companies listed so far are worth in excess of $100 billion, but all of this is still missing one very important piece of the Mormon Church conglomerate. Ensign Peak Advisors, a company directly owned by the bishop's holding company, oversees and has assets under management of over $55 billion and is unseemingly one of the world's largest hedge funds. Ensign Peak Advisors manages the church's investments in publicly listed securities, while Deseret Management Corporation oversees companies that the church owns outright, or also known as private equity. Ensign Peak Advisors' largest equity investments are in Apple and Microsoft, but their $55 billion fund holds positions in hundreds of companies and public securities. The Mormon Church, or the Mormon Church Hedge Fund, got into a sticky situation because over 20 years ago, the Mormon Church established 13 holding companies under the investing company, which was under another holding company, then another underneath the trust, which ultimately was just the Mormon Church. Confusing, right? Well, that's their intention.
It's been estimated at $150 billion. Does that sound correct?
That's an estimate that some have made.
Are we in the ballpark or no?
We have significant resources.
Ensign tried to spread out its holding companies amongst these companies to hide the scale of their financial holdings. The church can get away with not sharing that much about their financials with the government because, well, the whole church and state thing. That means that the only way that anybody could figure out how much the church really held was through a Form 13F, which is a filing that must be made with the SEC when an institutional investor owns more than $100 million worth of assets under management. 13F filings are public information because it's very important for investors to see major shareholders in a company, because anybody with $100 million or more of a company stock could significantly affect its price if they decided to execute orders on it. That's why the SEC makes sure that this is as simple as searching the name of the institutional investor on their website to find the 13F and get a list of all the companies they're invested into. Ensign Peak Advisors didn't want to be on that list because it would reveal the scale of their holdings with a simple Google search, so they spread out their holdings amongst 13 subsidiaries so they never exceeded $100 million worth of holdings in a single entity, and didn't need to make a 13F filing with the SEC, which is very illegal and is referenced to as concealment. If 13F filings were this simple, hedge funds and institutional investors would have found a way around them decades ago, so their market moves wouldn't become public knowledge. The church probably thought it could get away with this because, after all, technically it was a church, and to be honest, they really did get away with it even though they got fined. Let me explain. The SEC fined Ensign Peak Advisors $4 million and the church itself $1 million. Although, combined, the fines amounted to less than 0.003% of the church's total assets. And to put that in proportion to you guys is like saying someone with a net worth of $100,000 would get fined $3. You get the point, it's very small. It is important to note, this brought lots of negative attention to the church, as it should, which potentially made them lose memberships. The church did apologize and it acknowledged its wrongdoing and is now taking steps to comply with the SEC requirements. It also emphasizes in statements that all funds are invested solely to support the church's missions. And what that actually means is all profits get distributed back to the church and stay within the church at all means possible. This entire corporate structure is completely tax-free and can grow unimpeded by the IRS. Since the church can't even spend the money it's making from tithes and donations, this investment portfolio is only going to grow larger and more powerful over time.
Ensign Peak brings money in, and it's the Hotel California. It never comes out.
The church now holds considerable voting power in numerous major companies that influence the daily lives of Americans. Senior executives at firms with substantial church ownership might be swayed into making business decisions that advance the church's objectives, ranging from conservative business practices to favorable media coverage and outlets where they have investment. Now, remember how the members are required to donate 10% of their income? You would think the church would abide by similar guidelines and donate 10% of their financial proceeds to helping others alike. If we take a look at the 2022 Humanitarian Aid Annual Reports, it states they had $1.02 billion in charitable expenditure. If we take a deeper look, the total actual financial expenditures in donations adds up to only $63.9 million, and the rest of the $1.02 billion was calculated by appraising donated old food, donated old clothing, and volunteer hours from church members. We don't know the total actual income of the church on an annual basis, but if we refer back to the Reuters study, which estimated $7 billion in annual donations in 2012, which was 14 years ago, it is very safe to say we can use this as an extremely conservative figure. So $7 billion in annual income with $63.9 million in donations comes out to donating only 0.91%, which is about a tenth of what they wrote in their Bible and call their members to do. The point being is they don't care to follow their own rules, and they're abiding by their mission of making as much money as possible. I personally have a few Mormon friends, and truly, they are some of the most friendly people who are most likely blind to the fact of how this church really operates, and because, well, they were raised in it, essentially being brainwashed. Coincidentally, I remember specifically in high school, one of my Mormon friends got a perfect score on the SAT, which is extremely hard to do, and 3 years later, he redacted his membership and actually outs the Mormon Church as a corrupt organization that's built on just crazy lies. Matthew chapter 1, verse 13 from the NIV Bible says, "It is written that my house shall be called a house of prayer, but humans will make it a den of thieves."